Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Oh, come on. Both of you sucked before she whipped you into shape.
A whip? Is that what that was?
All content used or discussed in this podcast are the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504c2, Title 17.
Let's do this.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Brian.
And this is our review of Bring It On, starring Kirsten Dunst, Eliza Dushku, Gabrielle Union, Claire Kramer, and Jesse Bradford. Directed by Peyton Reed, released in 2000 on a budget of $28 million, grossed over $90 million in its run, and is considered a cult classic, especially among cheerleaders. Now, you may be asking yourself, guys, really, why this movie? I mean, look, here at Film Strip, we hit it all. Horror, comedy, action, sci-fi, romance, good, bad, and even worse from time to time. This one actually ties in with our Buffy podcast, though, The Art of Slaying.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it ties in quite nicely as we transition from Season 4 to Season 5 in our Buffy podcast, because it carries over Eliza Dushku, who plays Missy, and Claire Kramer, who plays Courtney in this episode. And so we thought it's a good time to do this movie because Eliza Dushku is coming off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Claire Kramer is about to come on. So that's why we chose this movie. No other reason other than that. I, for one, have never seen this movie. Yes, there is another reason.
This movie is freaking awesome, and I've been telling you about it forever. And how long have you owned the disc and hadn't watched it?
Actually, I bought the disc for Season 3 because we had planned to do it for that and never did. So, yeah, I haven't had it that long. Maybe...
Well, no, I've been talking about doing this one in some form, and we teased it out there that we were going to do it with Season 3, and we just, like I said, with schedules and stuff, we just didn't get around to it. But we said, we got to do something. We got to do an extra for Season 4, and at this point in the Buffy world, the movies that these people are in take a real nosedive. I mean, they don't really do good stuff. I mean, Cruel Intentions is an obvious one, but that actually happened before Buffy really became a hit. So that one's almost its own thing, like maybe another day, because there's a sequel to that and some other stuff. We were trying to find a good standalone, and I said, look, this is the bridge. It's Eliza Dushku going off the show, and it's Claire Kramer coming on, and it was in 1999, 2000. It was in the Season 3, Season 4 swing, so I kind of like it. I mean, I saw this movie when it came out with a group of my friends. I was actually out of college. I was in graduate school, but I still had a lot of friends that were in college, and I went and saw this, and I thought, this is hilarious, because I had friends, close friends, that were cheerleaders, and even, guy cheerleaders in college and stuff, and I totally got the humor of it, and I've owned this on VHS and now DVD, and I mean, I've seen this movie in a lot of forms. It used to be on USA like every other weekend, and I have seen it a lot, and it was just a good excuse to do the thing. I mean, I think a lot of times when we get to do comedy here, we're usually doing it because it's so bad it's good. Well, it's finally nice to do one that's actually just good in its own right.
Yeah, this is the first time I've actually seen this movie. I've heard about it a lot, but it never really appealed to me, the whole idea of it. So I never bothered to actually watch it. But, I figured I'd take one for the team, and you keep giving it a thumbs up, so why not? Anyway, Jay, before we get too much into this, why don't you go ahead and give us a plot summary of what this movie's really about?
Okay, I'm going to summarize this up real quick, all right? Hot cheerleaders and hotter cheerleaders and ESPN. That's about says it all. In all seriousness, though, the Toros cheerleading squad of Rancho Carne High School in California has got spirit, spunk, sass, and a killer routine that's sure to land them another national championship. It would be their 6th in a row. But when newcomer Missy, played by Eliza Dushku, shows newly elected team captain Torrance, played by Kirsten Dunst, that their perfectly choreographed routines were actually stolen from the East Compton Clovers, the Toros scramble to come up with a routine. With the help of Torrance's college boyfriend, he used to be a cheerleader, the Toros get a new routine choreographed for them by a famous man named Sparky Pilastri. I love these names. The Clovers, led by the squad captain Isis, Gabrielle Union, are having difficulty coming up with enough money to cover their travel expenses to the championship, even though they know their cheers are getting ripped off and they're ready to bring it and represent. Torrance, wanting to face the best competition, gets her dad's company to sponsor the Clovers, but Isis refuses to take the money, and with the help of a television show, kind of like Oprah, the Clovers are in the competition. Sadly for the Toros, they learned that their new routine has been given out to a number of other squads. And since they are returning champions, they're allowed to continue, but now they must come up with another new routine before Nationals. At the national competition, the East Compton Clovers and the Rancho Carne Toros go head-to-head, but in the end, the Clovers prove that indeed they are the better team. Torrance accepts her team's fate like a true champion and congratulates Isis and the Clovers on a well-earned victory, and we get a big dance montage at the end. And along the way, Torrance and Missy's brother Cliff also kind of hook up and do this whole romance thing. But we'll get there. But that's pretty much it, right, Brian? I mean, that's the whole movie. It's pretty simple.
It's the point of the movie, anyway. It's the hits on the major parts of what this movie was about, and it was very simple, basically. And what I did like about this movie is that in the end, the team that you thought would win didn't actually win. I thought that was cool.
And nowadays that seems like a trite or a trope, But I want to remind everybody, this movie came out in 2000. It was made in '99. This kind of started that trope in a lot of ways. And even though you may want to dismiss this as a dumb cheerleader movie, which is what I said when I was drugged to see it with people, there's a lot more to this. I think this film really plays well and lasts because the teenagers in it do act like teenagers, and I mean legit teenagers. They're not played too dumb. They're not played too smart. They're played like teenagers, even though none of these people look like teenagers. They all look like they're 28, but
they probably all are 28.
They probably all were. You're right, but they play it well. And I gotta say, you and I have been enamored with Eliza Dushku since she walked on the Buffy show and loved almost everything she's done. But seeing her in a different context as still kind of the tough girl or whatever, but also getting to play, I guess, more normal and not homicidal is a different twist. I mean, kind of normal and not homicidal. So. I mean, she has her quirks. She's still kind of a badass in this film, and she portrays herself as that kind of a badass person. But yeah, I agree. Playing something normal for once. You mentioned that we're big fans of what she's done, and I'd like to preface that by saying big fans of what she's done on television. Good point. Yeah, well, on the Buffy show. Let's even make that more
Buffy
specific.
And the Dollhouse was pretty good, things like that. But she's done some pretty strange movies in the past. This is one of her normal ones, which is good. And yeah, she's kind of like the second star to, well, I guess the third star, but the second star to Kirsten Dunst in this, and does a good job.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, it's a good point to say that she would have only been known for having done Buffy at this point. I mean, nobody would know her from anything else. That's why she's in this movie.
Right.
They even have that little line later on about let's beat up the two Buffys.
People would know her from Picket Fences, the TV show. When she was
I guess,
little.
I didn't watch that show, so I guess, I never think about her. And maybe the daughter from True Lies, if you can remember her, that she was in that, but...
Oh, yeah,
that
exactly.
Seems like a long time ago. That was 8 years before this, so I mean, it's...
Yeah, but she was really little.
Yeah, I mean, she was preteen, I guess, or maybe 13 or something. She's much younger than she is now in this show. And Kirsten Dunst had been around for a while, too. She'd done a lot of the teen comedies, and that was in kind of her swing of this. Matter of fact, this is kind of the ending part of that for her before she got to doing... I mean, you talk about a woman who's done some weird roles. She's taken some really strange things, but done well with them, I'll say. Kirsten Dunst is one of those actresses that I don't often think of when I'm throwing out names of actresses I like to watch, but she's everything I've seen her in I've liked. Sometimes even when she's not the star, I just think she can play these really broad roles, and she gets to play some different stuff here. I mean, I remember her back from Small Soldiers, man, so I've been watching Kirsten Dunst for a long time. And Jesse Bradford, I've watched since. I mean, he's been a kid that grew up in front of me too. He's in a great Harrison Ford movie I love called Presumed Innocent, and he's been in a couple other things. And I had seen him in some other stuff before this. I think he was in one of the Disney Back to the Future kind of rip-offs or something where he had a watch that let him time travel. And I'd seen him in some other stuff, but I liked him in this too. I thought when I saw this, I mean, I was like, yeah, I want to be Cliff because I was a guitar player and I was in a band at the time, and I would make songs for girls to try to get their attention, though never as cool. And I would listen to music that was as cool as him, maybe. But I related to it. I bought it, and everybody else here too. Like all the different characters, you can find a relation to them. Either not only in pop culture, but in your own life. I mean, all of us knew the tough girl or the tough school that, like the Clovers, which, I mean, you automatically set them in East Compton. This is post Boys in the Hood. Everybody knows what that is. Those are the kids from the hard side, I mean, real hard. And you've got a couple of, they act real tough. And girls, though, that are trying to rise up out of that. And I think that's what Gabrielle Union plays really well. I mean, I dug it. I thought it was fun. And you've got the catty cast of cheerleaders to go along with all of them.
You got to think back, too. This is the time when you had a lot of these high school movies, things like She's All That and
American Pie.
American Pie, yep. You mean all these teen comedies were coming out. And the one thing that you can say about this time frame, this 1998, 99, Can't Hardly Wait is in there as well. All those movies hit a chord because the actors played the teen role so well that you, as a teenager or a high school student, related very well to that situation. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. I mean, I was just in my senior year of college when this came out, when American Pie and Not came out, and I watched those movies and I related almost to every situation. I could think of a memory from high school that matched that. More so, not much with the American Pie thing. But
I was going to say, that may be another conversation we need to have. So.
But as far as, some of the interactions between the different students, you had the cheerleaders who were very cocky and arrogant, and everything was about them. You get that with Whitney and Courtney, of course, and of course Big Red. And you had the cheerleader like Torrance, who was just trying to get ahead and do it the right way, and was conflicted when she found out that she was stealing routines this whole time, right? And so I related very well to these characters, and that's what I liked about this movie, and that's what I liked about the genre at the time, was because you related so well to the characters.
You make a point about those teen comedies and that they all came out when we were graduating from college, basically, but they were all made where it could have happened the 4 or 5 years previous when we were still in high school. Like, you felt like you could relate to it. Very much like the Brat Pack era 80s films and like my brother's generation really related to. Is even though they were a little bit older than what that was, they could relate to, that's exactly what I'm going through, or then they go through it a couple years later. And I think that this whole swing of them, swing of teen comedies, and you named 3 or 4 there, really strong ones. Can't Hardly Wait, She's All That, American Pie, and this probably are the 4 best ones out of that swing of them. And it's because they struck a chord with a generation of people who had been out of high school long enough to look back at that point to be somewhat fond of it. Like, not to want to be there, but to at least be able to laugh at the stuff that we did and what we saw and, our fashion sense and all that stuff. And let's face it, I mean, these are beautiful people in Southern California. That has been a trope to throw up to teenagers forever, for years. Beverly Hills 90210, probably one of the more famous shows to have idolized that culture for a couple of generations now. And that's what these people are. Even the East Compton Clovers, it's not the Compton from Boys in the Hood, I'll tell you that. I mean, they look like a bad. I mean, the only difference in that part of town and Rancho Carne is that part is shot at night. That's really it. And the gym's a little darker and there's more ethnicity. That's all it is.
I like that they brought the rough life of the Compton area into it when they were talking about how most, they don't have the money to get to these competitions, and most of them don't have the lifespan to make it to a competition like this.
And they don't have daddy to run to.
They really brought that differences between the Rancho Chero school and the Rancho Carno school and the East Compton school right out in front of you. And I thought that was kind of cool, to give the difference between the two and how they were basically doing cheerleading, not only because they liked to do cheerleading, but because it kept them out of trouble. It kept them away from violence.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brad. And this is something I'll say that is one of the understated parts of this. And people now look back and go, "Oh, this is just glossed over," But no, I know kids that came from tougher schools or whatever. And they got out of that situation by adopting the attitude that Isis and some of her teammates have here. Is they're like, no, we may be in the ghetto, but we're not going to act like we're in the ghetto. We're gonna be better than these people. We're not going to beat them up. We're not going to steal their stuff. We're going to show them we're better. We're going to get ourselves to a point where we can make something out of ourselves. And I like the fact that they didn't play them as the stereotypical thug, which is what you would expect when you hear this, right? But they played them as tough kids who grew up in tough times, but were making wise decisions about their future.
Well, especially with the two sidekicks of ISIS, I think they were Lava and Janelope. They were kind of the badass girls of the squad, and they kind of were like in the face and ready to fight if they had to. So they were playing that up pretty hard. But I like that they had Isis as a captain who was kind of calming him down. It was a good mix of it, and it was a good interaction between them all. And what I really thought was kind of cool was that Eliza Dushku's character Missy had experience in that area, so she knew what it was like. She was willing to take Torrance to it and see it all together to prove that it was stolen and all that other stuff.
Yeah, her high school in L.A. used to play them all the time, she said. So she had seen the East Compton Clovers. I mean, she would know them, and yeah, that whole bit was cool. That gives you the idea that Missy may be this little rich girl or whatever, but she is not afraid to hang out in a different part of town or be around that element, and she's definitely a lot tougher than the kids in Rancho Carne. Who are about as white bread and got it made as you can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny though, but it's all played for laughs. And the thing is that makes this movie work for me, Brian, is they do talk about all this stuff. And look, they talk about a lot of stuff. They talk about guys' sexuality and guy cheerleaders and the stereotypes there. They deal with all that stuff and this whole idea of growing up and the jerk boyfriend versus the good guy who's a little different, and what they play all that stuff on a really high adult level, and it's played very real. And I think that's what makes this thing last, is beyond all the funny stuff and the cool stuff with all the cheerleading dances and all, and the that era of music that's just that little pocket of weird music that's this film.
It was pop alternative music, right?
Yeah, there's that little pocket of that stuff. All of those little cultural markers. You have these time-honored coming of age traditions playing out in front of you, and they're played really well.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the whole idea that they did here. They played on the all these stereotypes. What's the biggest stereotype for someone who's dating a guy who's a year ahead of them? They go off to college, and then you lose touch, and you can't get a hold of him, and he starts
cheating on you.
Right. Now, let's talk about Aaron there. For me, the way that he played the character, I could have swore he was gay. And then they end up having him sleeping with all these different girls. I was just like, oh my. Totally threw me for a loop there. I could have sworn he was going to be the gay one.
I think that's because they're playing that to play against the type. Is you would assume that, but he's not. That's just him. He's just effeminate, and that's the personality, and he uses that as a way to get girls. Let's talk about this too. This was an era of the teen comedy pop culture where it was the super sensitive sweet guy that seemed to get the girls on TV and in movies, right? That started some of this. So this is that time period too. That's another reason he's there.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing thing.
But you're right. He plays
Torrance keeps trying to get a hold of him. She can't, and it's because he's basically hanging with other girls and getting his groove on instead of doing his work. When she finally does get a hold of him, he's basically too drunk to understand what's going on, and just gives her some really, turns out, crappy advice to go talk to this choreographer.
Yeah, we gotta talk about that dude in a minute. and even then, after that, he sides with Courtney and what's her name,
Whitney.
Courtney and Whitney, to let them take over. And baby, you're just not a leader, but that's okay. Like, he has no faith in her at all. Yeah. And it's only when Torrance comes around and realizes, you know what, screw all of you, that she starts taking control.
Yeah, I agree, and it's an interesting little conflict there too. But you get the typical stereotype of the guy who goes off to college and she has no clue what he's doing, so he just does it anyway. But then realizes that he wants to still be in the relationship and tries to keep her there and thinks that he can. It's just an interesting. It's a side story, right? And she's conflicted, obviously, because she's starting to have feelings for Cliff, who's Missy's brother, and she doesn't know if she should, but she can't get a hold of her current boyfriend, so you got people telling her just go for it, and she's like, I can't, blah, blah, blah. It's a well-played dynamic that happens every day in high school.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we all knew people that dated, that were in college, maybe starting college with us, that were still dating people in high school. And it's, you just see, you're like, man, how are you doing that? And the answer from all of them is, I can make it work. And really what you're doing is you're too insecure with yourself to let that go and move on. And that's Aaron's thing, is he has everything in a little box the way he likes it, but he can't see the reality for what it really is. And that Torrance is growing away, and probably not a good mix for him anyway, because he doesn't really know her and he doesn't appreciate her. And I think it's only when she realizes that she's comfortable with, Cliff and all that stuff. But it's cool. I mean, the whole setup here, I think the bit here is, you put Torrance and Missy together, and that all happens because Torrance is made captain, and one of the girls falls in a stunt and like breaks her arm and neck and back, apparently really hurts herself, and they have to get a new cheerleader, so they do the tryouts. And I got to tell you, Brian, I crack up at this scene every time I watch it. All the different people they'd run in there. You get the musical theater guy, and they're all like, what are you doing here? And then you get the girl that's crying because I just broke up with my boyfriend. And then you get the girl that's like super not excited and do I have to wear underwear? And then you get the really young girl that's like the younger sister of Whitney, I think, and she's just kind of cute, but she's playing it like the inside candidate, like, I got this thing, I ain't got to really work for this.
And she's terrible.
And then you get the really slutty girl that dances to Cherry Pie from Warrant, which I'm like, that song's about 8 years older than all of you. I don't know that you would know it, but whatever, that's more me and you. But anyway, you have that going on, and then you have Missy walk in, who's got, Eliza Dushku's got her hair like, it's almost like faux dreadlocks. The way she's got it done. She's got she's scrawled a fake tattoo with a pin on her arm, and she's got a chain wallet. I mean, she looks like she's, this badass biker chick. And she comes in there and basically says, I'm only here because your school doesn't have a gymnastics team. How freaking hard can this be? And when they test her, she turns out to be really awesome, but she takes convincing, and it's really Torrance and her brothers taunting that convince her to join the squad. And I like that. I like the fact, though, that we're set up with the ultimate cheerleader girl with the ultimate not cheerleader girl, and those two have to be friends.
I liked it too. I thought it was a good dynamic, and I like that she basically accepts the invitation to finally come and do it, and then her first practice, she sees what they're doing and just says, I'm done with this is crap, because she sees that they're doing the same routines that she's already seen a million times and nothing original like they said it was going to be. And I like that she takes Torrance to see that she's been doing copied routines all the time, and just the dynamic that builds between them. They become the leaders, whereas Courtney and Whitney are trying to be the leaders, and then finally people start following. At first they were leaning more towards Courtney and Whitney, and as Missy kind of helped Torrance take over on things, they finally fall in line. And I like how they built that up. I thought it was done very well.
It is, and that introduces Cliff as a part of all of that dynamic too. Torrance is getting away from the old influences in her life. Aaron and Courtney and Whitney, and I guess Big Red to some extent, the former head cheerleader, who's kind of this crazy, evil queen bitch person.
Big time,
yeah, that we know nothing about other than that. And the new influences in her life of Missy and Cliff, and in some way the East Compton girls too. Being exposed to that and seeing that and knowing that, like, gosh, we are frauds. It breaks up her whole thing. And I love the fact that her parents are on her and everybody else is like, it's just cheerleading. And she constantly has to remind people, y'all don't understand. I am cheerleading. This is what I am. This is how I've built my entire identity to this point. and she takes it seriously. And I love that. I thought Kirsten Dunst played it so well and had such a fun art to follow, because it is all about allowing more mature, better for you influences into your life. And that's who Missy and Cliff are. And Cliff is this cute new boy who listens to punk rock, and he's different, and he totally, the other guys are like ripping on him, and he's like, whatever, and which I do love, the fact that the two like jerk guys in the school are the football players that make fun of everybody, and like the football team sucks. I thought that was funny.
That was a great storyline. I loved every time that the football team tried to lay an insult on. They're just like, when have you won a game? When have you done anything
like, dude,
right?
Look at the score.
Exactly. It's so well done. They're trying to rip the cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders just like, seriously, dude? We have championships. What do you have? No wins.
Which is funny
It's
to
great.
think about. But you know what, Brian? I knew high schools like this, where the cheerleading squad and the band were awesome, and the football team sucked, but everybody got the football team hung the moon. And that's you know what though? Those are those cultures in high school. You're in the band or you're in the cheerleading squad. You had your own little world outside of the jocks, and that's exactly what this is. And Cliff is not any of it. He's so over high school. First off, he looks like he's 30, but the other side of it is he's so beyond high school. He doesn't care. You could tell he could just breeze through senior year and does not care. And I like the confidence he has, because that allows Torrance to feel okay to be confident in herself.
Yeah, no, totally, and I agree. And the only reason he's there is really to support Missy, and because you can see he's got a little bit of a thing for Torrance, so he does keep showing up. Otherwise, you assume he'd be sitting in his room playing his guitar all night. Right?
Well, the great scene there, after the first game or whatever, Torrance is staying over with Missy, and she goes to the bathroom, and like he comes in there, and they're both brushing their teeth, and it's like the brushing your teeth sex scene. Neither one of them want to stop. They're trying to outdo each other. And right. I've actually listened to the commentary on this before, and the director talks about specifically, we wanted to have a love scene and it not be a love scene.
Nice.
So we thought of the goofiest thing we could, and that somewhere along the line, someone said they should just both brush their teeth for like 5 minutes and not say anything. Just look at each other. And it's that whole bit of you're trying to impress somebody and you don't realize it, and you get lost in it. Now, I thought that was cute.
Yeah, I thought they did it very well, actually. You could tell that each of them kind of liked the other one. She kind of walks into his bedroom while he's jamming out on his guitar and just sits and watches him, and he has no clue. He's just having a good time playing his guitar. He
starts playing Boxy Lady or something like that when she walks in the room.
It was really well done. I thought, it's cheesy in parts, sure, but I think that the dynamic worked well, and it's your typical high school infatuation right away, right? You know you shouldn't like, but you're intrigued, and so you kind of sneak away from your friend to catch a glimpse of what your interest is doing. I thought they did a good job on it.
And I love how Missy's the one that busts them both on this. At first, she's
Right.
like, "You're not into my brother, are you?" And she's like, no way. And then at the car wash, he brings in his really dirty car, and he's standing there just watching all the girls, in their typical car. And then Missy walks right in front of him wearing that little strapless or, spaghetti strap bikini. And he's like, put those away.
Right.
And Torrance walks up, and he's like, "My brother's here to stare at your rack." And he's like, no, I'm not. Yeah, I kind of am. Because the funny thing is, it's subtle, but he's staring at her chest when she says that.
Right.
It's like, no, I'm not. Oh, I am. I'm a teenage boy. I can't help it.
It's fun. I like the whole dynamic that they had there with the three of them. I thought it worked very well, like I said before, and it was just fun to watch that whole thing go from her infatuation to his liking of her to the whole song thing was interesting.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because before that, we've got to set up the big fall, right? And it's that Torrance has convinced everybody we can't do the East Compton cheers, and we've got to do something new. What are we going to do? So she finally gets up with her boyfriend, who, like you say, is so hungover he can barely talk to her, and he's like, "Oh, baby, it's cool. Call this guy. He's real reputable. Everybody knows him. Sparky Pilastri, the choreographer, who comes in." Brian, what is this guy? It is so hilarious. This whole 4 minutes he's there, cutting them down and playing that awful techno song and Spirit Fingers.
It was interesting. It reminds me of Dodgeball with Patches O'Houlihan and the throwing of the wrenches, right? I mean, that's what it reminded me of. And obviously, I would assume that took from this because it was obviously later. But that's what it reminded me of. I'm like, oh, this is another one of those Patches O'Houlihan things where he's gonna just tell him to shut up and listen to him and follow him, and then. Yeah,
except that he's
bizarre.
A fraud.
Well, right, which is even better, right? He turns out that he's been selling this routine to everyone who would pay him, right? It was no unique routine at all. And I thought that was the best part is when they go to the semifinals or
the regionals. They're in their regional competition, and right before they go on, the school before them, are you ready to be dominated? And they start doing the spirit finger
Same
dance.
thing. And then they have to go on, and all the judges like, did we not just see this?
Oh, the fact that they all stop and there's just dead silence for a minute, that is hilarious. But you know what? Think about this though. This is exactly what you get these. I don't know if you're watching it or not, Brian, but I get invested in these awful reality shows that are just train wrecks. And one my wife and I cannot get enough of is Dance Moms, and just these people just freaking out over just these girls and these dance routines. And the way that woman talks about some of the stuff she has these kids do is exactly like this guy. It's like what he has them do has nothing to demonstrate their cheerleading skills. It's all about this choreographed weird dances and these hand gestures. And so, I mean, it's nothing like what they can do. And it's so preposterous, but it's so hip. And I love that it's just that big dig and all that. No, just do what you are.
I like that he got them to buy into it too and take it so seriously, and the whole finger thing is just
don't
just
eat.
bizarre.
Maybe your ass will eat some of itself or something like that.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, it was
smile.
It was so interesting and funny that I just love that scene, and the habit
cheerleaders
are
dancers who've gone retarded.
I thought that was great.
That cheerleaders are dancers who've gone retarded. He just did bloops them all. And then the best thing though is their reaction at regionals. So they're like, oh crap, what are we going to do now? And they have no choice. They've got to go on with it. And the whole bit at the end, Big Red's there for whatever reason, the hanger-oner to your high school glory, I guess. What are you doing? You've wrecked my squad. And, Aaron gets her away from Torrance. And that's when he lays the whole, oh, baby, you should just step down as captain. It's okay. And then the official guy's the one like, well, technically what you did is not illegal. It's just frowned upon. But we hear this guy's, done this up and down the West Coast. And that's when you realize Torrance is like, I am screwed because the people I trusted have screwed me.
Yeah. Both of them. And her boyfriend and her former captain, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's blaming the irrational stuff. I dropped the spirit stick and and Missy is like, girlfriend, you have got to just calm down, but that's the trouble she's got. And that's the deal. She goes home that night. Aaron drives her home, big kiss and stuff, and waiting at her door with flowers and his little mixtape song is Cliff. Poor old Cliff. I'm going to tell you, man, I have actually been in that situation where I was supposed to go meet somebody and she forgot and rolled up with her old boyfriend that they were supposed to not be together. I didn't have a mixtape, but I was like, this sucks. I was like, I've been there. But once again, it's one of the two new people that brings Torrance out of her funk. His little happy, goofy song gets her like cheering on her bed, basically.
Right, and of course he's all bummed at this point because he spotted her with her. I don't even know if he knew she had a boyfriend at the time. I don't think he even did. No. Having that happen in front of him kind of spoils him on her, and he's really bummed about it. And so she's now realizing that she's falling for this guy, and he's decided that he can't do anything about it because she's with someone else. So real interesting dynamic again, something that happens in real life a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, that kind of thing happens, and it's played really well too. And I like how it's not she just can't call him up the next day and he's like, yeah, fine. He's still like, okay, whatever, and he just goes about his day like, I'm so done with high school anyway, and moves on. And but it's what he did there and that really gets Torrance to go, you know what, I'm going to start standing up for myself. And the next day she's going to practice, and Courtney and Whitney are basically there to throw her out, as captain, and they start taking over, and she's like, hold on just a second. pump the brakes. And she takes over the group, like for once, takes a big stand.
Exactly. She says that you can't replace her unless she steps down, and she says, I'm not stepping down. Puts those two in their place finally, which I might say, because they were getting on my nerves even. But I'm
going to tell you, but now look, they were funny stereotypes. Claire Kramer's the one that played Courtney, and she's hilarious in this. She's such a
definitely
ditz.
Funny, yeah. They did a good job at it, which is great. You want to be annoyed by them the whole time, and it was well done.
Well, Brian, you know who she is. You mentioned Can't Hardly Wait earlier. She's the girl at the party that wants to have sex with everyone, and like her and Seth Green are going to hook up, and then she winds up getting back together with her boyfriend. So that's where you've seen her before, and I think she later went on to be on Dawson's Creek.
I think this is the first time I've actually seen her. I've seen Can't Hardly Wait, but it was so long ago, so I wouldn't even remember. I got it on DVD though.
Anyway, the side point, she does put the two, girls in their place and starts taking over, and that's when she starts whipping everybody into shape. We're going to come up with a routine, and they start doing things original for once. And she goes to her dad, and she wants to get sponsorship for the Clovers, and she gets it. And I got to tell you, this part at different times, I've been like, this is just ridiculous. But then now I get it. And I'm like, no, I like the fact that the Clovers are like, we don't need your charity. We got it worked out on our own. And they do get it worked out. I thought that was cool.
No, I thought that was great because you don't want them to just go in because they're being paid to go in. You wanted them to do it themselves. Because if they're not going to do it themselves, then what's the point of having them in the competition? And what's the point of having them eventually win? So I like that she was like, no, we don't want your pity. We don't want your money. We'll get in there. You'll see us. We'll find a way. And they did. And I thought it was a very well done thing. I would have probably been sad if they would have taken the money and actually gone that way. I think that would have been kind of cheap.
Yeah, it would have been cheap. You're right. And the fact that they do wind up there at their own accord allows us to respect them as much as we respect Torrance and the Toros, with the fact that they are going to go on their own, with what they've come up with, win, lose, or draw. This is their best shot. And they go head to head. And I got to tell you, man, I'm no cheerleading coach or critic, but both of those routines are pretty awesome. I've watched some cheerleading competitions in my time, and they're always highly energetic, highly entertaining, and both of those groups did a fantastic job. The stunt doubles that are in there and everything, it looks really good at the national competition.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that stuff. I've never seen a cheerleading thing, so I just enjoyed watching it as someone who's never seen anything like it before in my life. So
back when ESPN2 was new and they showed like old AWA wrestling and bad football, in between that, cheerleading competitions were on, and that's when I used to see that on.
Interesting. Yeah.
So when you work at when you work at a radio station and TV station, these are the things you see when you have downtime. But anyway, I like the whole national competition though, in that Cliff shows up at his own accord to be there to support Missy and to support Torrance, and they have the big blowout, and like we said, the Clovers win, and Torrance takes it like a real champ. They act excited about being in second place. It's like, by George, we earned this one.
Well, of course, and it's cool because they finally done something on their own originally, and it got them second place. So that's got to feel pretty good that she was able to put together a winning routine that was only beat out by the best, right? Because they've been stealing from the best, so they know that their routines were normally the best. So they got beat by the best, and I like that they got beat. I like that the hero team didn't actually win. I thought that was kind of a cool twist.
Yeah, it is nice. It's not what you expect, but it is the right thing that happened, and that's what you want. And then the big end montage, the great cheerleading song Mickey, and everybody kind of dancing for the camera and mugging and having a good time. That song will get in your head and make you want to commit crime, but it was fun. It's a funny way to end this very funny, light touch kind of movie, which will touch on some broader strokes or some deeper stuff, but still handle it in a real, I guess I could say, safe way, but in a way that's also very real and very challenging. There's nothing about this that feels fake, and I think that's the best compliment I can give the movie. Well, Brian, I think we're at the point of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, popcorn ratings for the film. So what are yours for Bring It On?
Well, Jay, as I said at the beginning, this is the first time I've actually seen this movie, and I think that your hype of it is good and spot on. I thought it was a fun movie to watch. It didn't make me cringe that I was watching this movie about cheerleading like I thought maybe it would. There was some great comedy in there. There was some great dialogue, and it brings back some great memories of time in high school. It's a lot of what you saw there is what really went on in high school. So I liked it. So for me, I'm going to give this a large popcorn. I thought it was good.
I have praised this movie quite a bit. I think I made it pretty clear that I like this movie, have liked it for a long time, and will continue to like it for all the reasons you said and the things we've said in the last 40 minutes or so. This is just a fun movie, folks, and I recommend it. I think it's a good one to watch whenever you get a chance. It's not something you want to watch constantly, but every once in a while, it's good to go back to that swing of teen comedies from the very late 90s, the early 2000s, and there were some gems in there, and this is certainly one of them. So I'm going to join you in that large bucket of popcorn, my man. I think this is large popcorn and a very fun thing to see. So recommend, and a large popcorn as well. Folks, thanks for joining us on this special edition of Film Strip, where we review Bring It On. You can find more episodes at our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies. Got everything in there from Pretty Woman to Batman and Robin to Leprechaun 3. I mean, we got it all, folks. So, Blair Witch Project. As we said, we've kind of done it all. So check it out and let us know what you think. Hook up with us on our Facebook and Twitter accounts and leave us a review on iTunes. And like I say, we love hearing from the fans. So until next time, for Brian, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Thanks for listening to Film Strip. Visit our website, continuousplaypodcast.com, for more reviews and episodes. All content used or discussed in this podcast are the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17.